hi everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for our March user group meeting. It is the last user group meeting for the fiscal year for our Government of Canada clients. So thanks for taking a few minutes out of your no doubt busy month to join us here on this meeting.
Well, welcome everybody. Wanted to mention we have new customers, new clients that we're working with. Environment and Climate Change Canada, we had brought on previously in the EA space, and we now have the Office of Continual Improvement that we're engaging with, who are interested in what we're doing in our compliance management solutions, around ISO and other parts of that. Audits, non-conformances, corrective actions. Agriculture and Agri-Foods Canada as well. We're just getting the contracts in place for them to come on board. And I believe they're going to be a hosted solution. We have new projects, and I had mentioned the Office of Continual Improvement. So we actually have a project going with them to get them up and running with our compliance management solution. So that's a great new little project we have. In terms of training updates, we just ran a successful course with Roger Burleton, who's on the call here today, in Halifax, and it was very well received. The Nova Scotia Health and the province of Nova Scotia had people attending. And we have Roger here in Ottawa in April, and we have people from the government attending, as well as people from actually Intact Insurance is sending people from Montreal and Toronto to the course here. And we're still looking to add a few more registrations to the course. So it's looking pretty full, but there is still some space. If you have some carryover money that you can use into April, we have a place for you to put it. And we'll be back in September in Halifax. The province has committed to anchoring another course in mid-September. So lots going on in the business process and business architecture space, and Roger's going to talk a little bit more about PRG framework and other things that are in QualiWare, and Kirill will assist with that. Our website, we've been updating it extensively, so if you haven't been there lately, you should go take a look. There are a number of short videos outlining different use cases and capabilities on the different pages. Our training calendar is just in the process of being updated for the next quarter, so watch that in the next week or so for updates there. And we have a new bundling of courses. We have a Flex Technical package, and it spans a number of the training roadmaps. So you might want to take a look there as to things that we have going. We do have some QualiWare Architect and Collaboration licenses that have been purchased by the government that are available to departments for the cost of the maintenance and support only for the past year. Those are available only till the end of May, at which point they will vanish. So for 20% of the typical cost of acquiring an architect or a collaboration license, we can transfer some licenses to your organization. And we're seeing some good uptake from some different departments on this. And our EA solution volume discount contract pricing ends May 31st. So that's the sunset for this contract. From a services perspective, we're replacing it with TBIPs, SBIPs, and TSPS, temporary help services, pro services, call-ups, and task authorizations. So, and we have the SALSA for software, So we handle services with those vehicles, the Salsa for software and maintenance and support, and we have the new SaaS supply arrangement for cloud deployments. So through the combination of those different vehicles, we'll be able to continue to provide the same services. There will be a little more work involved, putting together the task authorizations, but we're more than willing to, and we are currently working with a number of departments to make that happen. So thank you for your support. Still, there you go. I think over the past little while, we've mentioned our discovery repository, and it's available on the SALSA, and CBSA and ESDC have subscribed. And as part of our onboarding of new customers, ECCC has a short subscription for that as well to help them get up and running, very quickly. So Kirill, who helped put this together, is going to continue to have some things to say in that space, and I'll get to that in a minute. 1010, the release is coming in April, and we have Phil in the office here. So if anyone in the office really wants to twist his arm and to get the real date, feel free. Don't hurt him too bad, though. We need him to be able to type still. Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin, we need Phil to put the hand on the Bible and vouch, like, and promise that it's going to be in April.
There you go.
I did speak to Kuno earlier today, and he did agree to present at our QualiWare user group meeting in April.
So that tells you it should be, should be good when it comes.
Alternatively, Kuno is coming by, so we can keep him in Canada until he releases.
That's
well,
right.
there is that too. Yes, Kuno will be in Ottawa in the next couple of weeks. Wanted to introduce a couple of new team members who've joined us. Mike Hart, who's in the office today, and a number of people have met him. He's a very senior compliance management and ISO consultant. Has been out for a very long time, out in the wilderness as a consultant doing that kind of work, and he's chosen to join CloseReach, and we're very glad to have him on board. And so he's helping at ECCC. We have him working with Eric Sheik at National Defense and helping on a number of other things. And Karen Kuhn, who has worked for us before at ESDC, has joined us on a full-time basis as well as a senior enterprise architect. So welcoming both of them on board. And we have a promotion in the company. Kirill Kazyanenko is our new director of product management. So this is part of the company's efforts to take things away from me. And that's probably a good thing because then it'll get done on time. So Kirill is looking after the project or product management space. So things like the discovery repository, things like our compliance management solution, all the different pre-built things that we are putting together here at CloseReach are all falling in his space. Second and third level support provided by CloseReach, as well as onboarding and systems engineering. So expect to see more happening, with interfaces, like the DevOps one to continue to be developed, Power BI enhancements there, and others. So congratulations, Kirill, on your new position. And so a number of people, are now reporting to him, and between providing support and product management services and consulting services. So
thanks, Kevin. I'm glad you're not announced my retirement, so I'll gladly stick around for a while.
What a great segue, Kirill. Thank you.
There's a segue. So yeah, we want to.
Wait a minute.
So we have Denise. Somebody is not muted.
Yeah, I know. I'm just gonna go see if I can figure that out.
So Denise Boisvert-Dingley is in the office today, and we would like to congratulate her on her retirement. So we made her cry a little bit, get a bit teary, with cake and some presents and good wishes from a lot of people that she's worked with over the years. And, you know, if for those that don't know Denise, we have a few things to show you here. She was part of the first CloseReach QualiWare sale in Ottawa at CBSA with Tony Mungham. And so they brought the EA product into CBSA, and she was the first person trained, in the Ottawa market, and version 5.2. It's a long time ago. She actually was instrumental in building the GSRM meta model for CBSA that every department can use. And I'll show you a little bit about that in a minute. And she was involved in the early iterations of CBSA's agency business model, which has now evolved into the whole Archimate agency models that they use right now. We used to have for publishing a special Canadian package, HTML package, and it was not dynamic web, it was static HTML pages. And I went back through the vault here, my emails to emails in 2012 and 2013 where we were discussing this CA HTML package and the problems with interfacing with IIS. And it's amazing how everything that's old is new again. Go ahead, Cecile. She was involved in the first French web HTML deployment, and she helped us develop a lot of our training materials. You know, our QualiWare Basic, the QEP course. She helped build our application portfolio managed use case and slide deck, and for use at different customers, and revise it. And she's worked a lot of different places: CBSA, Shared Services, PSVC, CFIA, D&D, many. So, lots of people who over the years have had the good fortune to have worked with Denise. So thank you very much, Denise. On the more things change, the more they stay the same, you can see an email from 2011 about a call from a procurement person and about procuring the software, and we've heard nothing since. And asking QualiWare for a license extension because the government hasn't paid yet. Actually go back for 1 second.
Sure. Sorry, I'm trying. Oh no.
There we go. And at the bottom, if you can believe it, 2012, talking with CBSA about Archimate. So we've been on that, CBSA has been on that path for a long time. I just found it very interesting to run into an email talking about Archimate that far back. So very, very early days for Archimate at that point. Thanks, Cecile. Go to the next. So this is GSRM. And for those of you who don't know, or that the younger people in the crowd, that used to be a big deal with the Government of Canada. It was a strategic reference model for the government, talking about policies, programs, services, processes, resources, and how, target groups in the public and roles and organizations, within government talk to one another. And so this is the first custom meta model that was built for the Government of Canada. So,
Sorry. I was not okay. Keep going.
So, service classes and outputs and triggers and logic models and business services, accountability, PSAMs and SIAMs. This was all case-maker work done very early on with Denise's help and Steve Arbogast from QualiWare for CBSA. And you can see the window across the top there. It looked very similar to QLM, right? Things don't necessarily change a whole lot. Here's an example of a CBSA page. Static HTML, not dynamic like it is now. So you had to define headers and footers and all kinds of other things. We can go on to the next one, Cecile. And again, business systems, an early QRV, how many rows are being displayed and the types of content that's being displayed. So again, very, very different from what we have today.
Roger, as many of you know, is founded Process Renewal Group and is an internationally recognized expert in business architecture. He's here to give us a sneak peek of his upcoming business architecture course. And then he and Carol are going to demonstrate how the PRG framework is supported in QualiWare to drive transformation, support business architecture, and optimize processes in your organization. Roger recently delivered the business architecture course in Halifax, and let me just say, to rave reviews. And we're looking forward to having him here in Ottawa again. So thanks, Roger, for jumping in.
So, as Cecile has said, I'll be there in a few weeks now, back to Ottawa, where I spent many years of my life before I moved out to Vancouver. This will be, I don't know how many times we've done this class now. We've done it a number of times over, what, 3-4 years now, I think, in Ottawa, usually about once a year, maybe twice a year. We have one coming up. It's always fun, and it's always very interactive, and it's always a little different depending upon what people are facing and dealing with. You have to be a little flexible with this stuff. But I'm just going to say a little bit about what we're going to deal with here. Let me just get to the beginning. I need to go to the beginning of the presentation. Here we go. Okay. Yeah. So again, this is the name of this is called Collecting, Connecting, and Correcting the Dots, to basically try to figure out what's going on. And I mean, as you all know, architecture is about being able to say, if I touch A, does B move? Or what else is the implication of all the various pieces? That's how we use in architecture. But you have to collect all those domains, all the information about those domains, so you can connect them. So then you can ask the question, what if? And this is true on the business side. And what we believe very, very strongly is that you really can't do enterprise architecture effectively. You cannot just take a strategy and implement it. It doesn't work that way. You have to organize it. It has to be something which makes sure you're delivering the results of the business. So we see business architecture sort of sitting in that space between strategy and dealing with all the things that we're going to have to do to make it work, the enterprise architecture stuff. So we think it's a critical component for enterprise architects as well as strategy people to communicate in a more effective way. So let's talk about this. This is shortcutting this quite a bit, because I think we're going to leave time for Carol to sort of show how it can be supported in QualiWare. So it's something to have an intention of doing something better to improve business performance. So if you want to improve any capability, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to measure it. And we believe that you can measure it you can only measure it when you use it. And so therefore, there's a strong connection between the capability and other things, like in that circle that says business process. A process actually does work. The work is unavoidable. The work can be evaluated. It can be measured in terms of performance, but it deals with information. That's a really critically important ring. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff that has to be right. The strategy has to be right. And quite often we end up doing a great job implementing a poor strategy. And so the business model and the stakeholder analysis is critical, the external stakeholder analysis. But also there's policies, decisions, and rules. If those are not aligned with the outcomes we're looking for, then we're going to have to make some changes. The organizational structure has roles and incentives. If those incentives are driving people for the wrong behaviors, then that's not good either. But clearly also people, we have to have the right people with the right competency, with the right motivation and sufficient capacity to do the job. And we often talk about technology, but I can absolutely assure you that if you're doing business architecture, it's one of many things that has to be dealt with. But it is on the table along with everything else. And there could be a bunch of infrastructural issues depending upon the nature of your business. And of course, none of this works if the culture is poor. It'll filter everything else out and so on. So business architecture is going to connect all these things up and keep them all focused on getting the right results. And that's really what we're trying to do. So there is a framework that we take through everybody through in the training, step by step, and lots of exercises and practice and good insights coming out of all this. So the 4 major phases of the framework are: we have to define what the business is all about, and I use the word business very broadly. We have to design how that's going to happen. We actually then have to step in and build it all out, and then we have to run it. And so, but the purpose here is to be better at running it, and we do all this other stuff to make that happen. So when we're defining the business, we think there's 4 major components to this, and we conveniently have 4 of these, and like a 4x4, if you want to call it that, where we truly understand the business model, the external pressures. As you know, there's so many external pressures right now, and they're changing right underneath us. So dealing with that, understanding who the external participants are, or how they interface with us, and pulling out of all this what we call the North Star. The North Star is the strategic intention. It's not the strategy, but it's the intention. So what does success look like? We deal with identifying that based upon the stakeholder analysis. And we also then figure out what are the strategic requirements. So as an example of this, we have a client right now that said, we're going to grow our market share, private sector. We're going to grow our market share at 15% per year, compounded for 5 years, which is double the business in 5 years. And we're going to be profitable at 20%, and we're going to generate 4% cash. Well, that's great as an objective, but it's not a strategy. Then so figuring out what the strategy is to make that happen. So the marketplace that they're in today is growing at 2%, not 15%. They have to do something dramatic. And their big aha was they have to acquire other companies in order to be able to make it. So figuring these 2 things out gives direction to all of our architecture. Without this, I don't know how you can make a choice as to what goes first, what goes second, and what's important. So this is important. We sort of get this nailed down, and we use that for everything else. Then design the business of a lot of the stuff we're used to. What's business information? What's the right business information we need in order to run? What are the right value streams and end-to-end processes? What are the right capabilities we need to be able to execute those processes? And how will I measure that? And put the measurement system in place so I can assess how well we're doing against the North Star. So this is the more structural things we tend to think about in business architecture, but there are means to the end of hitting the North Star. Then after that, now we can go into how do we build it. So bottom left corner down here is going to be basically something we need to build out and prioritize. Which capabilities go first? Which processes have to be dealt with? What information quality do we have to make sure is in place? What KPIs are we going to hit? And then, based upon that, I can build a transformation portfolio, I can resource it, and I can build things out of all things in that hexagon. So, so as a result of all that, I can put the appropriate governance in place, execute the business, measure it, use the feedback, the dashboards, the scorecards, and I can do end-to-end management of the end-to-end processes, not only dealing with the functional org chart. And of course, we can do continuous improvement. So this is generally what we're trying to do. But no human being in the world can keep track of all that. We have to have the knowledge base, which QualiWare helps us with. We can still use AI, but AI is not going to help us determine the gap, determine the priorities, determine the design decisions, determine what goes first, and determine what resources go on. So the AI will help us, but we still need the framework. We still need to know what it is we're trying to do. So it just goes like this. We typically look at the business ecosystem. We look at the strategic objectives and the strategic requirements. That's the basis. We do all this in the course with a little case study. We then will look at the business information, or what we often call concepts or business objects. And that's the beginning of the data design. We look at the end-to-end processes or value streams, whatever you want to call them, to make sure we can actually deliver the results, because we still have to do work. I talked to an organization last week and they said, oh, we don't have any processes. I said, do you do any work? And they said, yes, we do. I said, does it suck? I said, yes, it does. Then you have bad processes, right? So they're always there, whether you like it or not. Same thing with your capabilities. Can we build reusable capabilities? Can I do identity management once for all the value streams, or do I have 7 different versions of that? I want to avoid that. And we go through all that. How do we measure results? How do we measure success? How do we then prioritize? Because you can't do everything at once. This is the portfolio, coming up with the portfolio, which that portfolio and the change roadmap is going to give us our program of change. Then the hard work of building things out from there. And of course, running this on an ongoing basis to making sure we put it into action operationally. But so the business architecture is covering all of this stuff off, and the course actually does all that, and it dovetails extremely nicely with the enterprise architecture work that has to happen. So one of the things that this is like more like connecting the dots. If, for example, this is just 2 domains, this is the business process or value streams, and these are the capabilities. If I look down here, if I have a problem in the process performance, then I've got to look back to see which capabilities are affecting that. And I find one over here, this particular one is messing up this process, but it's also used in another process, but that other process is fine. I should not go fix this for this process until I know every place that's impacted by that change. So this is from a business point of view, but it hits your capabilities and it really makes sure that you don't have unintended consequences of solutions. So this is just 2 domains, but all the various domains will connect together. And you need to be able to say, if I click on process 1.1.3, I get a list of the capabilities. If I click on A.A.B, I get a list of all the processes. Now I can be smarter about making sure that I do the right things in my detailed enterprise architecture. So in summary, this is my new favorite expression now, is I'm calling it wings up as opposed to elbows up. But if you want to become an agile business, we're in the knowledge age, and you have to know the impacts of things on other things. The pressures are there to find new ways of working. We've just seen this very, very recently. And this is a very important message. This is not just about changing software. This is about changing the business and making sure any changes are successful. And the thing, these dots will not connect themselves. You're going to have to connect them up, and you're going to have to keep track of what's going on. You have to keep it up to date. We're good Canadians here. We got the Canada geese leading the way, but all these various aspects have to take the lead and all work together in one thing.
So thanks for the presentation there, and I've taken your training and I really enjoyed it. Made a lot of sense to me. But my question's relating to how we in D&D implement IT projects. It seems to be the last thing is considered is what the organization has to do to be ready for the new product. And time again, we find that once the tool is deployed, there's a lot of scrambling to try to find the right people to make it work and address the organizational changes that may be implied. So do you have any top level advice as to avoid that sort of thing? I know it's easy to say, yeah, let's just make sure it's in the project plan, but it just doesn't seem to work out that way. Like, what kind of convincing argument do you make to leadership that they really got to look at their own people first?
Yeah, I really think the hexagon is a critical thing here. I find that it really resonates with people, but we bring it in early. It's not sort of an implementation question, it's a design question. So you could end up designing your software slightly differently because it's much better to fit the organization and the skills of the people. It's not just a technology implementation. I'm not going to hit that bullseye in the hexagon unless I consider all aspects of this right from the get-go. And so it's not just about, can I implement this software? It's about, can I realize a business solution, which is what the executives want in the first place. And this is one of the dangers of going right from strategic intention right to enterprise architecture without considering the business implication in the middle. If we're down at implementation time, we've missed an opportunity to deal with this earlier. I will always put this in front of the executives right up front to say, we're going to look at all of this, you guys. We have to.
Thank you for the answer.
That's just consolation. I don't know.
Well, I just have a follow-up question. Is that often with some of these large projects, the organizational implications are not just moving people around. They sometimes standing up new organizations and also have to do some fiscal planning for it. So
yes.
Is that the sort of thing that,
yes,
again, is a component of that upfront hexagon?
So in that particular case, if the organization is going to have to change around, and by the way, the hard part about that is this could affect the executive level. And the thing is, they may not love that. But if it's going to affect big chunks of the org chart, like the example I showed before, where that organization had to double its business in 5 years. There was a major organization change that had to be done in order to support the intention of the strategy. But they did have to actually physically rearrange people and basically look at where the work got done, because they were actually combining two different large companies. People had to move around and had to report somewhere else, and it became physical space as well, because the org chart had to change, because they were trying to deliver better performance. And the thing is, I showed as a hexagon, but all those things touch each other potentially. And if they do, we need to know about it. So I can do the organization change, the physical office space change in parallel with the technology change. It's not an implementation question. It's a design question. And so we've got to get ahead of it. We're not just building software, and we're not doing everything here so I can make the software work. I'm doing it so I can make the business better. So you need to have those tough conversations very early in the game.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Kevin. Okay, Carol.
And just to follow up, yeah, perfect. I'm assuming you can see my screen. Can you?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can.
Excellent. Just to follow up on what Roger was talking about, and Roger, I'm assuming all it ties back to North Star strategic objectives, right? That's where you start planning, and that's where you essentially want to identify things that you want to achieve as an organization. It's interesting because we've just recently done about about a year ago, Roger and I have done a workshop for one of the GC departments, and they wanted to specifically focus on the North Star objectives, this particular quadrant, and understand how it all ties back together to their enterprise architecture, IT, and how the DSB, what are the strategic objectives of DSB within its organization and how it impacts on the rest of the business. So it was interesting. All right. So business architecture dashboard or desktop, for anybody who knows QualiWare. We have lots of experts here in the room. I do see we have some guests from Nova Scotia government, I'm assuming. Those are the folks that attended the training with Roger recently. So thank you very much for joining today, guys. This is something that might be new to you, but obviously you guys have taken the training and you've seen the Roger's framework. We're going to showcase what it looks like in the actual product, which is called QualiWare. So the goal was really there to create a robust business architecture framework within the QualiWare and make sure we could tie it back together to our rest of the organization. As Roger said, connecting the dots. So QualiWare actually have consulted with Roger a while back, and they've implemented the PRG framework and Broken Hexagon inside of the out-of-the-box QualiWare. This is available as of 10.991 version, I believe. So anybody who wants to start working on the PRG framework and design and define business according to the Rogers framework and the hexagon could start using it right away. If you don't have a copy, we'll be gladly to pass it over to you guys. I want to start with PRG framework. And Roger, if you have any comments, just please jump in. We'll we'll have a chat about it. As Roger mentioned, defining business, and it all starts with over here, and it goes essentially from business model, business ecosystems, and then one of the most important items would be North Star strategic objectives, and then those strategic requirements. How do you get to those objectives? So in QualiWare, when we click on business model, this is going to bring you right to the templates that are related to the business operating model, business structure of your organization, and essentially gives you the list of the items that are in your repository that are related to the business model. So if I was to click on, let's say, the business operating model here, Jitsi overview, this is going to open a business operating model with the high-level business functions, the product and services we deliver, who are our customers, who are our suppliers, what are the channels we're using. There are some KPIs also available to showcase how well we are doing this as part of our organization, and so on and so forth. You obviously can drill it down further and understand how those processes tie back together to your IT or who's responsible for that. But essentially, with just one click, you can go right into that business model and start either drawing or doing some essentially brainstorming on how your business model looks like at this moment. Then we go to the main page again. I'm just going to switch to the classic mode for a second. Business ecosystem. So in the business ecosystem, QualiWare obviously will highlight items related to the customer journey map, stakeholder models, but most important, business ecosystem itself. And when I click on the business ecosystem, the airport ecosystem, this is going to highlight our business, our internal and external, and most important, external stakeholders. So who are our suppliers, who are our customers, what are the support elements that are related to, in this particular example, that would be the airport. That essentially it highlights everybody who ties back together to our business ecosystem and our organization. When I go to the strategic objectives, it could obviously provide me the list of those objectives, or it could have the strategy model underneath of it and highlight all of those objectives that you would like to understand in your organization. And here we have the strategy model. The list could be basically a list of those objectives or goals that your organization is trying to hit. Those really configurable and customizable depending on your organization. As you've used QualiWare, you know that queries are fully customizable, as well as strategic requirements. So now we go into the requirement models, and here we have the requirement models from directly from QualiWare, and then I'm going to click on, let's say, I actually have one of the good examples right there. Overall goals. So the overall goals, and then what are the requirements to those goals, and how do we want to achieve that? And here we have the requirements compliance analysis and requirement gap analysis. So this would understand, we have our strategic requirements versus our strategic objectives, and how far are we away from them, and what are the things required to support those strategic objectives. Roger, is there anything you'd like to add? I'm just finishing up on this quadrant. If there are certain things you want to highlight.
No, I think that the only thing I want to say is that there's a number of different ways you can do some of these models. So if you have your favorite one, you can still use it, and you can pick within the tool how you want to represent some of it. The critical issue is that you really know what success is looking like for you and what you're aiming for. It's remarkable how often we have people marching off on a transformation, but there's no common understanding of what good looks like.
And I'm assuming that all ties back together to this right side of the quadrant. Objectives and requirements.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now we go into the business information. So what QualiWare does, it highlights all templates related to the information in your organization. So again, this could be go directly into your applications and information modeling and ontologies and physical and logical data modeling. So all sorts of different examples and templates available in QualiWare to support that that pillar of business information. Business processes. Again, this is obviously the backbone of any organization, and QualiWare excels in it. And this gives you a list of all of the business process networks and swim lane diagrams and BPMN diagrams that you have available inside of your repository. And essentially, if I was to click on that, this gives me a list of, you know, the templates and who's the owner of it, what's the status of those processes at this moment. And if I want to drill down further, let's say, well, here you go. Now I have a swim lane diagram, BPMN diagram, and it gives me a highlight of procedure to launch a new project in this organization. As well as you see who's responsible, who's accountable, what are the requirements, what are the regulations that are connected to this particular process itself.
I think that's a really good example of what I mean by connecting the dots. Okay. For that particular example, I can see the controls I need to have in this process because of those regulations. But also, I'd love to be able to just click on a regulation or find all the processes that regulation impacts. So I can see it two ways. The connection is really critical.
Yes, absolutely. And we, absolutely. And risks and objectives, and we can have regulations, and we can have all sorts of facets that are tying back together to the processes, as you said, connecting the dots. So, yeah. All right, business capabilities. So that would be business capability models, for example, and QualiWare again excels in it. So Cheeksy Airport application business capability model, that gives you the highlights of the capabilities in your organization that are required and its maturity level, its importance, target importance in this organization. And again, if we click on that, this ties back together to those goals and, you know, North Star objectives that we are trying to hit in the previous quadrant under strategic objectives. And again, connecting the dots right on the left side as well. Can I go back for a second? Business performance. So performance diagrams. Again, if we want to tie it back to the KPIs and PIs performance indicators, we could have performance diagrams that highlight what's the objective there, what's the target state for every KPI, what direction are we moving toward to? Are we, moving to a right direction? Has it not been changed? Are we going wrong direction in this particular case? The traffic light system that highlights how well we are doing of, you know, what's the present value of those KPIs versus the target state of the KPIs. That's all available in QualiWare. And again, within one click, going from the PRG framework, you go directly to the performance diagram and try to understand the performance of your organization. Transformation portfolios. Sorry, actually, I should have started with change priorities. Change in priorities, as well as transformation portfolios and change roadmaps and resource transformation. And let's say if I was to click on, I'm going to click on change roadmap. And this gives you strategic roadmaps that you have in your repository. And this could be a combination of the projects and initiatives that you need to undertake over a certain period of time and how they support back your strategic objectives. So here you have the innovation roadmap with timelines and those initiatives and what's the timeline on them. And if I was to click on this initiative, this right away gives me a description. Is it in development right now? How important is this initiative? Who are the participating units in those initiatives? What are the processes that are supported? And again, if I just click on that, this again, connect the dot of going from just the framework cell, going to the initiative and going to the process right on the same page. Investment likelihood, implementation likelihood. What are the capabilities that this particular initiative delivers? And what's the implementation? Do we have the implementation initiative or project in place? I'm going to click on that and this will open the brand new facet of my organization of how we want to roll out this particular, initiative or project. Anything you'd like to add on this, Roger?
No, I just the general idea is traceability. So whatever we decide to work on, we do it because we can trace it back to the strategic importance of what the executive wants. And then we see in study after study after study, and it's been over decades now, that 70% of what we implement is not what people expected or needed in the first place. Massive gap between what people wanted and what actually ends up being realized in terms of either what it is or how long it takes. And it's because we don't realize how the things work together when we make changes. So this connects the dots.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. And I just switched the layout from Classic to the browser to show you a little bit more information and, show you some of the other aspects of visualization and connecting the dots in QualiWare. And now you see when I click on this particular initiative, it highlights those goals that are connected to this particular initiative. And we can have much more information behind it on what processes support that, what is it links to, what are the higher level diagrams. We'll look at that. This particular initiative ties back to this airport ecosystem that we've just looked at a few minutes back. So all ties back together. Gonna go to the main page and resource transformation, business execution. I'm not gonna spend too much time on that, but really how we're going to be operating the business and, performance assessment, assessing those KPIs and PIs and our organization, end-to-end management. And finally, the continuous improvement. I do want to click on that just because that ties back together to the other capabilities that QualiWare excels at. And that would be compliance, continuous improvement, governance, risk and compliance, and quality management. So here you have the list of continuous improvement items available in QualiWare in our repository right now. One of the major ones, you'll see the corrective actions and change request and, all sorts of other compliance related activities. So if I was to click, let's say, on corrective action, this will right away give me the list of the corrective action, properties that I need to be aware of. So what's the name of it? Who's responsible for this corrective action? What is it? What non-conformance is it related to? What are the recommended actions? Essentially providing you more information within one click. So beauty of that is that now we tie back all of the business architecture framework that we just showcased you back to other aspect of QualiWare, which is governance, risk, and compliance. And that's where you can tie it back to the management audit programs and management, again, the corrective actions or change request, and understanding how well you hit those audits and what are the things you need to change in your organization in order to essentially pass the audit or, let's say, successfully accomplish those strategic objectives that Roger was talking about. So continuous improvement is part of it, and GRC is really what we are trying to showcase here at the last quadrant. The last but not least, I really want to show you also the Berlin hexagon, because that's a different way to find information and navigate for the information in QualiWare. And I'm going to click on this. And again, now you see the Berlin hexagon that Roger just showcased you a few minutes ago. And here we have a very similar list of, content tables, so the queries that you've just seen. But now this is a different way to represent them. So let's say when I click on the technology, this is going to open all of the technology related information or data that I have in my repository. So that, again, that could be applications. This could be application architecture diagram. Let's say if I click on this, voila, we have application architecture diagram, which is actually a portfolio of applications that we're looking at right now. If we going to go back for a second, if we scroll to the second page, we might notice product canvases, so the product architecture, or the technology viewpoints, which would be the Archimate templates in this moment. If I click on 3, yeah, this is going to give me an application architecture as well. But all sorts of technology-related elements will be under technology. And then if I was to click on, let's say, infrastructure, this will give me the templates about the infrastructure. Not necessarily, not always that might be IT related. There are some components that QualiWare has related to the supply chain management and also the actual manufacturing itself. So there's a list of different templates available in there. But here we have the production side, let's say, and then the cloud architecture. So now we go into the IT. If I was to click on that, nothing is going to show up. Give me a second. I'm going to go to another one. Landchicks, the infrastructure diagram, for example. This is going to drill down right into the infrastructure diagram and how the network connected, and drilling down directly to the machine level and the printers and all of the infrastructure we have in our office, let's say, in our environment. And that's really about the infrastructure. Organization. So organization would highlight things such as organizational diagrams, or org charts, and then the people. So QualiWare, again, have a robust system of doing an org charts and highlighting, let's say, the main organizational units, and then who are responsible for them, who are part of those people. We see the chief executive officer is connected to the HQ, and then it ties back to the administration. So if I click on this right away opens me the brand new organizational diagram highlighting the administration-related units. I've been talking for way too long. Roger, do you have anything to add on the Broken hexagon?
No, you're doing a great job. It is a different perspective, but it's really more to make sure that people aren't missing something critical that can blow up your whole implementation because you didn't think about it.
Right. It makes sense. So then again, this is just the way how QualiWare really approach as far as, distributing and filtering those facets in your organization based on Roger's or Broken hexagon approach on understanding where are my strategy facets, where are my policy related templates, where is my technology related components. So somebody who's working in business architecture space and would like to use it, they could, they don't have to go for the multiple screens or trying to find some information. Oh, there's a bunch of Excel sheets. Where do we have this? Where do we have that? That's why the people are having QualiWare. Is to make sure that they can find everything in one space and been able to do it within 1 or 2 clicks. Anybody have any questions? Anybody in the training room? Any comments? Any questions?
Anybody still out there?
Anybody still alive?
Everybody still alive? Just checking.
Right. Just checking the pulse.
Everybody's still there.
The major component I want to highlight here is really QualiWare can synchronically connect the business architecture with the rest of the domains in your organization and rest of your facets and needs, and ensure the synergy, between whatever you're trying to work on by using Roger's framework versus the other components that you might find in QualiWare. And again, some of that could be, you might be working in ISO 9001 and you want to tie it back into the PRG framework, and you want to reuse all of those facets and elements. You can always do that in QualiWare. And as you see, we have multiple use cases. Most of you guys have seen that. I do want to highlight that QualiWare is a full blast enterprise architecture and business architecture tool with a high capabilities within the GRC space as well. So
one of the things I like, Carol, is that it actually interfaces very, very nicely or integrates very nicely with enterprise architecture. And I think in many ways, we're extending the scope of enterprise architecture to be much more of an influencer on supporting the business change. as opposed to being seen as a vehicle to get some technology delivered. And I think that's an important distinction in terms of the credibility of enterprise architecture in the business. I think that's important.
You're getting some thumbs up there, Roger. And Brenda's got her hand up. Speaking of thumbs up, Brenda, did you have a question?
More a comment than a question. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Roger for years and seeing how effective this framework is in places, and having this embedded in the software just means so much faster adoption, right, and progress, and therefore benefits, right? Plus you've got such an improved data quality and consistency. Roger's a very humble guy, but he's done some extremely excellent work with many high-profile companies across the globe. So I'm just backing up Roger here. It's good stuff and it works.
Yeah.
I'll send you a check later, Brenda.
There you go.
Thanks, Brenda. Not rehearsed at all, we promised.
I was going to say that QualiWare has picked the right person, a right maven per se, to introduce the business architecture into QualiWare. So it's great that it's part of the tool. And anybody who's interested, again, if you guys haven't seen that, because we've maybe we should have done a little bit better promotion on that side. But realistically, if anybody interested in using it, let us know and we can grab you the copy of it.
So everybody, the next meeting is the 28th of April. Same Monday, last Monday of the month, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Kuno will be presenting the 1010 release. So he will be providing us with a demo of that in our next QualiWare user group meeting. We will schedule Brenda's presentation from today as a separate lunch and learn. So you'll see something come out from us later this week with an invitation for that. And we'll probably do that in a couple of weeks' time. And please let us know if there's anything from today that piqued your interest. You can reach out to us, submit questions ahead of the next meeting. And here's how you can reach us. Myself, Cecile, or Kevin, or our new Director of Product Management, Kirill. So thanks again, everybody, for attending. And once again, Denise, thank you for all of your work over the years with our customers and at QualiWare, and also with our staff at CloseReach and the mentoring and training that you've provided. It's been great. So thanks very much, everyone.